Good morning, Husker fans. Welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me as always is Danny Gillette. And we're back here on this Thursday for another episode of the podcast. And today we're going to look ahead to the first big official visit weekend for Nebraska here in the 2026 class coming up. So we'll take a look at who's going to be on campus and what the chances are of maybe Nebraska adding to its 2026 class this weekend. There's been some other potential buzz on some commitments, some commitment dates set, and some new actually official visits. So we'll touch on base on all that stuff, and including speaking of baseball, there's been a couple of baseball players who have left via the transfer portal, so we will touch on that. So before we get into everything, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, get into the comment section. And Danny, how are you on this Thursday morning?
Good. It's going to be 93 in the Boston area today, and it's going to be a hot one. And that kind of goes well with things heating up on the recruiting trail for the football team.
Yeah, it is. We've talked about it here before, but it's official visit season for recruiting, and things are going to start heating up. People kind of, are well aware of that. But this is the first, kind of big weekend for Nebraska. They could have hosted guys last weekend. There was a couple 2026 guys who kind of were on campus for camps and stuff. But the official visits start this week. So let's just run down who's going to be on campus this weekend. So there's 10 guys scheduled to be on campus. Now, one of them, Cameron Hamiel, a cornerback just committed to Texas A&M, so he's probably not going to make that visit. But headlined by CJ Brona, who's going to be the Nebraska commitment, Kelvin Obot, the 6'6" offensive tackle from Idaho, Brian Bonner, 6'1", 185 running back from California. All three of those guys are ranked very highly in the top 108. Then you've got the Syracuse commitment, the edge Cameron Wilson, Kason Thomas. We haven't talked much about him, a 3-star linebacker from Iowa. So the Nebraska kind of battling the Hawkeyes there. Ryan Moret out of Miami, offensive lineman. Luke Sorensen actually just scheduled an official visit this week, so that is somewhat notable. He's got a commitment date coming up on June 20th. Ole Miss, Nebraska, Penn State are the top three teams in his recruitment. So this is a really big chance for Nebraska to try and, get the momentum, steal the momentum away from Penn State. And then Hayden Ainsworth, 6'5", 285 interior offensive lineman from Mississippi, visiting. And then Rex Waterman, 6'5", 295 out of Hamilton, Arizona, another 3-star tackle. So those are the 9 official visitors this weekend that are coming. So who do you have your eye on? Who are some of the, who are the most important visitors in your mind on this first weekend?
Well, one guy that I think really maybe not could commit this weekend, but kind of lean even further towards the Huskers is Cameron Wilson. I always thought that the Huskers had a good shot for him coming from Syracuse. And obviously keeping CJ Brona is of utmost importance. So that's something I'm going to be watching as well. Luke Sorensen is interesting, and I think that the fact that he's scheduled to visit to Nebraska this weekend is certainly a good sign. I mean, obviously, Penn State and Ole Miss are going to be tough to battle in this recruitment, especially Penn State, who is known for developing tight ends. But, I think the fact that, they have Hayden Ainsworth and Rex Waterman coming shows me that they're focusing on the offensive line, and I never like to refer to a kid as a backup plan, but they have both visiting, and if one doesn't work out, they've already started their recruiting process for the other guy, so that's important too. So, but to me, keeping CJ and landing hopefully or making even more headway with Cameron Wilson are two of the things that I'm watching for this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. CJ Brown. I mean, we've talked about that at length, and moving the needle with him. I mean, he just had a good visit with Florida. I think Florida State's coming up soon, so
I want to say the 13th, but I could be mistaken.
So Nebraska needs to just get the momentum in their direction. I think there's a good chance of that. I think it's a decent time for the visit. I sort of wish it was the last one and they could kind of give him the final closing pitch, but hopefully they can, get him to kind of shut down his recruitment. Honestly, I mean, that would be my goal this weekend. Like, hey, this is your commitment. This is where you want to stay. So we'll see if they can make, positive, create some positive momentum there to hang on to their commitment. And then Kelvin Obad is another big one that I'm watching, and I think that landing some premier offensive tackle talent is really critical in this class. And then I also think beyond that, I think they need to land 2 or 3 because I mean, look, they realize and the Huskers have found out over the past 2 cycles how difficult it is to land an offensive tackle in the transfer portal and how difficult it is to keep offensive tackles. I mean, look at Grant Segrin, a guy who's basically never played before, and a guy who came to Nebraska as a walk-on tight end and got a scholarship to go to play Oklahoma State, probably some NIL money. So when I'm looking at this, I think it's going to be a lot, and I think a lot of teams are going to realize this. But I feel like even lower, like a Rex Waterman, a 3-star type offensive tackle, like that's a guy you want to get in your program because even if you land a 5-star, because you want to be able to develop some of these guys and try to have some continuity going forward, so that maybe you're not like sitting there being like, hey, we need to find a tackle in the transfer portal. My thing is find them now in high school because it's going to be, no matter what you have to pay them to get them, it's going to be cheaper now. You can develop them because if you have to, like the reason Nebraska had to go to the portal to get Elijah Pritchett is because they missed on offensive tackle recruiting for, the past few years. They've got Grant Bricks. That's it. And he's not even like he's been playing guard. So this team hasn't really landed.
Well, Preston's not really a tackle though.
I mean, he's a right tackle, but they really haven't. I mean, they didn't have really a true left tackle, and so they had to go pay to find one in the transfer portal. And so the way I'm looking at it now, like let's get one of these big time offensive tackles. Someone who can in the future who can be a Trey Taylor protector because at this point. Kelvin Obot maybe would play, like if somebody from this 2026 class maybe would play for a year with Raiola, but for the most part, like this is for Trey Taylor, whoever this kind of class is going to be. So, I think that's really important. Kelvin Obot is one of the guys. I know Claude Mpua from Chicago's visiting later this month. Another left tackle type, that 6'6" type. That big, you know what I mean, like somebody that when you look at them, there's not you're not like. Could they be a tackle? Like, no, this is a left tackle type. And Grant Bricks he's not that. He's not, I mean, he could play left tackle, but he's not like a guy where you look at him and you're like, that's a left tackle. You know what I mean? Like, and that's Elijah Pritchett. When you look at his body type, that's what he is. So I would love to see Nebraska make some movement. I know Kelvin Obot's going to be a tough land, but he's in Idaho. And so he's one I'm really watching outside of CJ Brona. And then Brian Bonner, like I said, I would really love to see this team land an elite running back, a highly contested recruitment like that. I think they've got a chance, but it seems to me like the Brian Bonner recruitment for a guy who's like ranked 106 overall, it just seems like it's pretty wide open. I mean, UCLA, Penn State, Washington, Nebraska. I don't know if you could really peg a favorite out of that group. I mean, like a strong favorite. So that's another one I feel like that's a big opportunity for Nebraska this weekend is with Bonner, the running back.
And it's interesting because you saw, it was late at night, so maybe you didn't, but Phil Simpson tweeted out, go Big Red and Nebraska. So I wonder if something's already in the works somewhere, and I wonder who it could be because usually he doesn't tweet that stuff out unless they have a commitment.
Yeah, I mean, I think so on that front, I believe that probably had to do with Larry. Is it Larry Miles?
Yep,
the wide receiver.
Yep.
Because he visited Nebraska this week. And he's a 2026 receiver. So I don't know if that, was what Phil Simpson was referring to. But Larry Miles got offered after his visit. I think he's a 7-on-7 teammate of Trey Taylor, or at least he has some sort of connection with Trey Taylor.
Yep, he is.
But he's 5'10", 170 pounds. So he's a slot. I mean, he's a slot guy. He's ranked 467th overall in the 2026 composite rankings. Kentucky and Miami are two teams that are interested in him. He had 1,200 yards and on 68 receptions last season in high school. So he's got official visits for Louisville also, Kentucky and Pitt. So we'll see. He just was at Nebraska. But I feel like that's maybe where, what Phil Simpson was referring to. But we'll see. We'll see if he comes back like for an official visit. But he's got 44 offers. So Nebraska kind of getting in late, but it seems like they're building some momentum with slot receiver Larry Miles.
Yeah, no, and he would be a nice get. He's a playmaker. He almost kind of reminds me of Ja'Cory Barney a little bit, but we'll see. We'll we'll see how that recruitment goes. I mean, Miles also worked out with Kim Ward last month, so he's been putting that work in, and I'm hoping that they can land him, and I think that's probably what that tweet was about. So that would be a big get right there.
Yeah, it definitely would. You look at, I mean, the receiver board, and there definitely is some work to do. I mean, um, Ryan Mosley's off the board. There's not really a ton of guys, I would say. They did have the one commitment at wide receiver, but definitely some work to do there. I mean, tight end, there could be some work to do. Lincoln Watkins is coming in this month for a visit. Luke Sorensen is there as well. Luke Sorensen's got his decision date set for June 20th. So this is a big, like we said, this weekend is really big for him. And then another guy that was going to take an official visit, Xavion Griffin-Haynes, the 6'6" edge defender. He's going to announce his commitment today. Actually, he
Mm-hmm.
released the final top four on Wednesday, so that he's announcing between North Carolina, Florida State, Nebraska, and Georgia. But he just visited North Carolina. They have the crystal ball, so this is not going to be a commitment for Nebraska. So I mean, like, don't hold your breath. But that is another kind of a top target coming off the board, and it seems like more and more of that. I just feel like more and more that's been happening with this 2026 class. So I don't know. They do need to kind of get momentum, turn in their direction, because it's been a while since they've got. I mean, I know they got Trey Taylor last month, but it's been a while since they've got a 2026 commitment. And I mean, if we're looking at it, I mean, Larry Miles, I guess they've got some positive buzz towards him with a potential commitment. And I would say with the tight ends too, but they don't have a lot of like momentum. I mean, I wouldn't say that there's a lot of recruitments where you're like, Nebraska's for sure in the lead for this kid in the 2026 class. So they got some work to do this month.
I don't think this is going to be necessarily a big class. I think it's going to be a transfer portal class, and I think you're going to see some of the freshmen from the 2025 group really step up this year. I think 2027 is going to be, a much bigger class with Taylor in the fold, and you see how he's recruiting on social media. So honestly, I'm not too worried about this 2026 class, because they did a lot of good work in 2025, and there's more good work to be done in the future. But I see this as a smaller class, and then fill the rest in the transfer portal.
Yeah, I mean, I think, even last year's class was only 20, so I don't think it's going to be too big, but I still think, I mean, Matt Rule's talking about, we need to get guys that, you know, that can play at Ohio State, essentially recruiting against Ohio State, so he's kind of been bold, and they've been kind of, I guess, bold in the way that they have chased, I would say, some bigger fish. I mean, they've really, kind of ignored the state of Nebraska and gone, tried to go outside the state. And I mean, we'll see what the results are. But so far, I mean, they haven't really, generated a ton of buzz in this. The next few weeks obviously could change that, but they need to, in my opinion, they need to have a successful class. I mean, I think anything less than 10 4-star recruits, then I would call that a disappointment, honestly, because last year they had a 60% blue chip ratio. So to me, there's no reason they shouldn't be able to build on that. They had 12 out of 20 that were blue chips. So to me, that should be the target range for this team. And so we'll see if they can get there. They got a lot of work to do. And so that's just kind of where I'm at. I don't, Miles, I definitely can see them getting him. Hopefully they can hold on to CJ Brona. I feel like, if they lose CJ Brona, then, I mean, you look at this class and it's like, what is there? You know what I mean? Like right now he's it. I mean, in terms of like big time prospects to get kind of excited about for the future. So I'm not trying to downgrade any other prospects, but it just seems like, I mean, Matt Rule's saying like, oh, we're going after guys who can beat Ohio State, but I don't really see very many of those guys in this class yet. So we'll see what transpires there.
And I think, and I always refer back to the 2023 class where it was the end of June with these visits, like the ones came up this weekend, and then obviously next week too, where they really got all their work done. So I'm not too worried yet. We'll see. We'll assess this class at the end of the month.
Yeah. Let's see. So Sorensen's going to be committing. That'll be an interesting decision. But outside of that, yeah, I guess that's, essentially all the recruiting information we have to go over. I don't think there's anything else really major. But but yeah, it just will be interesting, to see if they can generate some positive buzz this first weekend with some of these guys. So, and then who knows, there might be some other offers. Trey Taylor's been around a lot. I guess the nice thing about Trey Taylor is he definitely doesn't seem like somebody that's going to be flipping. We'll see. We'll see how what kind of what kind of impact he can have, on the recruiting trail. I'm
For
still. I
sure.
mean, I do think that matters, but I'm still a little bit like skeptical of that he's going to bring a bunch of big time players. Like I mean, I do buy into that like a little bit, but I don't know. I'm just not sure if nowadays I don't know if like the quarterback is going to matter as much as just each player's personal NIL deal. So we'll see if that really helps. If it does, then Claude Ampua, man, like that's where the impact needs to be felt is in the 2026 class with Claude
Yeah.
Ampua. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess Larry Miles, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too worried about this class yet. I don't think this is going to be a big class anyway. Um, I think the 2025 class was the bigger class, and even that, like you said, was only 20 kids. So, uh, as far as recruiting is concerned, I'm kind of honestly looking kind of more towards 2027, but we'll see how things go. I mean, there's a lot of visits still to be had this month, and there's a lot of prospects that Nebraska's offered and reached out to and things like that. So I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the board here. So you got 10 visits this weekend, and then you've got 10 next weekend, and 9 after that, give or take a few. A few of those aren't going to happen. So, yeah, about 27. I mean, about 27 visits that really are going to matter, because I don't think that Cam Jensen, the UCLA commit's probably going to take his visit. This kid that's committing to North Carolina is not going to visit. I doubt the kid that's committed to Texas A&M is going to come visit. So that cuts you down to about 26, 27 targets. And yeah, so they're going to have to definitely make some momentum. Not that the On3 prediction machine is everything, it certainly isn't, but looking according to that, Nebraska leads with 6 of these guys going into this weekend. So 7 out of 26 guys. So that would be, I would say a solid haul if they could get about a third of these guys. That would give you 14 commitments. If you hold on to Brona, you can, add a few in on the back end and kind of go from there. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it fills out. But that's kind of like I said, what I'm watching, mostly CJ Brona, these offensive tackles. I'd like to see him get, a big time running back. I would like to see some type of, receiving talent in this class. Larry Miles would be a nice addition, but I know that they, are pretty well set with that position as well going into the future. But
Yeah, I keep forgetting that Isaiah Hunter's a freshman.
But I mean, at the same time, like I always go back to the thing, like I just don't think you can recruit that much based on, you can look at your current roster some, but I mean, like the transfer portal changes things so much. I
Yeah,
don't know how much you can rely on. Like, oh, we've got wide receiver depth, but that could be gone, and that could be gone in 3 transfer portal entries. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I don't know. I think you always have to. I think you always have to recruit. Like you don't have anything basically.
yeah. I mean, I definitely get that, but I also think we can also get players in the transfer portal and things like that too. So I think just maybe the overall urgency of recruiting in terms of we need to get depth is made a little bit not less, but well, I guess less by the transfer portal because you can basically, as long as you have the money, pick a guy up from the portal and plug him in and play him. So I think the landscape of recruiting has changed quite a bit, and as much as it can take away, it can also give. I mean, we saw what Nebraska's done with the offensive line, and so um, I think I think Nebraska, they've done well in the transfer portal in terms of using it and getting players to come here. I know they've missed out on some targets, but they've shown that they're not afraid to use it. So there is that part of it too.
Yeah, and speaking of the transfer portal, we'll wrap up here with some baseball talk. Baseball portal is open right now, and softball portal as well too. I know Nebraska fans are watching that. Hopeful, I know I'm hopeful that the softball team and the baseball team can kind of supplement their rosters. But Caden Brumbaugh, has entered the transfer portal. So redshirt junior appeared in 61 games, a 309 batting average, 18 doubles, 33 RBI, 51 runs scored. So one of their starting players. So that definitely hurts. Just I guess there's just not much we can really say about it. That's kind of what happens. Kale Frost is also left
Mm.
via the transfer portal. A few other players as well. The NCAA transfer portal window opened on June 3rd. Will close on July 2nd. So there's going to be, quite a bit of time to get that done. There's been some other players too that have entered the portal. Colin Kambastia, Hayden Lewis, Aiden Leeser, Deshaun Unger, and catcher Kanan Sundgren. So 7 players total have entered the portal, but nobody really outside of Brumbaugh that's like really notable. On the softball side, there's been a reserve pitcher, Caitlin Olensky, who left, and also a catcher, Macy Vicker. She only played 3 games this past season, so nothing really major on the softball side of it. I'm hoping that Nebraska will be, kind of an aggressive player in both of the transfer portals, because I feel like I've already said it, but with the pitching staff, I feel like Nebraska's in a pretty good
Yep.
spot. Ty Horn, Tucker Timmerman, Mason McConaughey, Luke Broderick. I mean, I feel like you could do a lot worse than those 4 guys is like your reliever and your 3 starters. So if they can add some bats, and they definitely need to add a power bat, with Gabe leaving.
Yeah, for sure.
They're gonna miss him. So yeah, if they could go get a big bat or two, and but it's tough because the SEC and the ACC, but mostly the SEC, they rule baseball, man. Like I think Mississippi State just got a new head coach from the ACC and has like a massive NIL budget. And then there's Texas and Texas A&M. So it's like
Yeah.
that's where Nebraska fans and people are being like, you have to give Will Bolt the resources to really compete for, to get to these like super regionals and stuff, like, so I don't know. But it would be
I
nice
don't
to
think
see
we'll be able to
Nebraska.
compete with Texas and the SEC in baseball. That's like asking us to compete with Nick Saban, Alabama in football. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's a short-sighted view of things, but I think there is a ceiling with this program, and I have my doubts that they will ever be able to compete with an SEC team just because they start in warm weather, and then they get the chance to kind of heat up a little bit, and and I don't know. It's a good goal, but I don't see it happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be difficult. I think they do. I mean, the program does need more resources.
I
If
agree
it,
with that, yeah, for sure.
but yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if they'll ever get that way. I do think that they can be. I do think Nebraska can be like one of the more resource heavy programs in the Big Ten. I think that's like a worthwhile goal, with
Yeah,
Oregon and like UCLA, and because I think you're really going to see once this house settlement, if it ever gets passed, I think you really are going to see the teams that, because then you can fully scholarship baseball. Like baseball was not a fully scholarship sport. And so that's going to change a lot. So I really think you're going to see a huge difference in the teams that are like, yeah, man, we're going to scholarship up, 25, whatever the roster is. I don't know. But I would like to see Nebraska do that. I would guess that they would. And, they're always talking about, competing at the highest level and everything. So like, let's let our baseball and softball programs, have an opportunity to actually compete for a national championship. And I think, if they could add a few players to the softball team, I think that they really could, because they legitimately were right there from making it. I know Tennessee didn't make the final, but they were in the mix. And I see no reason why Nebraska can't be, in the women's, not the final of the College World Series, but at least make it there. I
yeah.
think that's a realistic goal next season.
And I think next season for the baseball team, it's going to be a big year for Will Bolt because they had a decent season. They won the Big Ten championship, but they struggled in the midweek games. They struggled obviously against Oklahoma and all that stuff. I'm not going to rehash it, but it's a big year to kind of make sure that Nebraska can get business taken care of so that they don't have to keep winning the Big Ten title in order to make it to the NCAAs.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going to be and they moved that out of Omaha. I don't know where it is in 2026, but eventually it's not going to be in Omaha. So, but yeah, maybe they need to start playing all their midweek games in Omaha. I'm not sure what they need to do there, but
Yeah,
just start
right.
just start winning some, man. Yeah, make your life a little easier, and um, maybe go into the Big Ten tournament just having to like improve your seeding instead of in a do or die situation. It's been fun the last 2 years though, but yeah, it'd be fun to win more regular season games too.
It's been fun, and then they've completely fallen apart in the NCAA.
Yeah,
So I don't know. It's like Jekyll
yeah.
and Hyde with the team. I don't know which one you're gonna get on any given day.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, the first game against Oklahoma was frustrating with just they couldn't get anybody home, and then the second one, as soon as Will Walsh made that one error, it was like that was just a bad omen for the whole day. So I
Yeah,
don't
and then
know.
it
The
was like
SEC,
and then it was like
SEC
72 to
tough, but
2, like after 3 innings, and it's like, okay, like I'm not watching this anymore. Not literally 72 to 2, so don't
but
get in
then
the comments and be like, oh, you didn't watch. But it felt like 72 to 2. I'll say
it
that much.
it did. But then you also have these teams like Wright State that knocked off Vandy, and gosh, there's another team that was a 4 seed that made it to the super regional. I can't remember who it was, but you have these crazy Cinderella stories, which makes me also be like, why can't Nebraska do that? So but I don't. It's kind of a crazy sport, crazy format, and you get hot, and it's what's wild is when you get into the third day of the regional is like you're done with your starting pitching at that point, and I think that's where it gets kind of like all bets are off at that point.
Yeah, North Dakota State beat Kansas, and then UTSA
Yeah,
beat
UTSA.
Texas, and then Murray State also had a very solid
That's
tournament.
that's the team I was thinking of that. Yeah, was the 4 seed and made it to the regional or the super regional. Excuse me. So
Yeah, it's like, why can't we do that? I don't know. I don't know. It's a good
yeah, I
question,
don't know.
Chris.
We did make it in the softball, which was cool, but
Yeah, it was.
yeah. So gonna have to figure out how to battle with those SEC teams in baseball. But anyway, we'll wrap it up there. We'll come back. I think hopefully this Saturday we'll try to get one of our Saturday chats going,
Yeah.
and we'll have some more recruiting stuff. So come hang out with us. Come bring your questions, and yeah, if you haven't already, you guys hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.